Hello, nice to see you. We have Mr. Tero Vauraste here with us at Arctic Frontiers, day two, the morning session. How do you feel it went?
Very well, thank you. I think it was an interesting debate with some controversial issues as well, which is always good to have a real debate. I liked it.
Absolutely. So I was thinking, just because we're talking about oceans and sort of sustainability this morning, Tero is the chair of the Arctic Economic Council. What are your feelings on smaller coastal communities and ways in which we can keep them alive and thriving through smart economic policy?
I think it's very important because when you look into the Arctic, there is no one Arctic. You go to the US Arctic, you go to the Canadian Arctic, there are areas where you have long distances and yet again very small populations and very small communities. So their needs are very different compared to what needs are, for instance, here in the northern parts of Scandinavia. So we need to take into account the local conditions and the local developments. A good example, I think, for instance, is the developments in Iqaluit, which is, as we're aware, on Banff Island. And they've been having good developments now throughout the past couple of years. They're building a deepwater port with a budget of $80 million. I visited Iqaluit a couple of years ago and there was no port then. And this one road which went out of the town just stopped after 3 or 4 kilometers, and the name of the road was and still is the road to nowhere.
We have one of those in Alaska as well that is being debated. So maybe that's a theme in the north. So, what do you think? Back to that, though, to expand a bit further, with the smaller coastal communities and their economies, knowing that they are vital sort of to these cultures, to way of life. Do you see in the example you just gave, or in other places in the Arctic, sort of models that are working, whether it be assistance from the government, other types of funding, partnerships with urban centers or innovation centers? Can you give us examples of that?
Yeah, so first of all, one of the overarching themes of the Arctic Economic Council is the public-private partnerships. And that's because of the fact that there aren't that many taxpayers in the Arctic, and yet again there's a great need for investments and infrastructural development. And I think it's particularly important in these remote areas where you have small communities. So definitely we need a funding mechanisms which is related to public fundings as well. Secondly, here only yesterday, the Arctic Economic Council, in conjunction with the Danish Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Oxford Consultancy, provided and published a report about Arctic investment mechanisms. And that was a research with a proposal. So, and there's been a big discussion on the corridors about the Arctic investment vehicles. We recall what the World Economic Forum and Guggenheim Partners did a couple of years ago, and they had an attempt to start up an Arctic investment vehicle, but that's never materialized. So I think now it's the time for that.
Brilliant. Well, we hope that the proposal is met with open arms in terms of deep thought and consideration. And thank you so much for your work on the council. Thanks, Tero.
Thank you, Rachel.
Enjoy the conference.